What's up, guys? It's Javi from the Bullpen Mafia. We have a great episode lined up for you guys today. Tommy Hutton joins the Mafia. We got a ton of stories from Tommy, his career, his broadcast career, this new outfit of the Marlins. Absolutely amazing interview. Can't wait for you guys to check it out. Toad, we are finally back in the studio. We got producer Paul with a mic. We got a ton of stuff to cover.
But it's been a while.
It feels like it's been a while.
Is this the first recording after the All-Star game? Second.
No, because we had Mafia
Agler,
Day. Yeah,
and
Mafia Day.
Agler.
Mafia Day, Jesse Agler.
Tommy Hutton.
Right. And a lot of stuff happened in between that we don't necessarily going to cover it all, but you guys have to stick around for the back half of this episode. Tommy Hutton is unreal.
We know the majority of our listeners are Marlins diehards like the both of us. And, you know, we say this a lot. Maybe it's hyperbole and exaggeration sometimes a little bit. But what an honor and such a cool moment for us to interview one of the voices of our childhood.
And I think that's putting it lightly, right? I think we grew up in an era where the Marlins were the team for us, right? They won the first World Championship that we had seen, and obviously the Heat had their success, which came a little bit later, but the Marlins won 2 championships before any other team in South Florida, at least for our generation.
Yeah,
if we're looking in the 30s.
And T. Hut was part of all of that.
And not only part of that, he was integral in terms of how we watched the game, how we talked about the game, the excitement we have towards certain players. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but he goes into excruciating detail about how the most famous tagline, the Dan Uggla tagline, came to be. So we're really pumped. He was an unbelievable guest. I think he did mention he will come back.
Without a doubt.
A ton of stories.
We have our most recent guests. All 3 of them have said...
Yo, Mafia lifers, bro.
Yeah. What, Gabby Sanchez, Jesse Agler, Tommy Hutton. We need them all on at the same time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think aspirationally, one thing that you and I tossed around... we'd love to eventually watch a baseball game with some of these folks.
Yeah.
And we thought
Mafia cast
with Rich and Tommy.
Ooh.
I mean, that is on our stairway to heaven. Like, that's what we're looking at. That's our goal.
It's going back to the Mafia meetup. It feels like a natural progression. We're building this brand. We're integrating with the Marlins more and more. Wink, wink, cough, cough. But yeah, man, exciting times in baseball. Several headlines the last few weeks. The Major League Baseball keeps outdoing itself every weekend with attendance, starting a couple weekends ago with the NASCAR game in Bristol, what state? Tennessee.
Tennessee. First Major League Baseball game in Tennessee.
And then this past weekend, again, over 1 million fans in attendance across the league. I think this speaks volumes about the direction of Major League Baseball, how we've spoken about this before, but Rob Manfred's willingness to push the boundary with some of his innovations. And I think the young stars across the league are building. They are hitting their stride, and it's happening close to home with us, with the Marlins, with Kyle Stowers, Agustin Ramirez, and now with Jakob Marsee. The Marlins they're in a good place. In a good place. I know they had a rough series in Atlanta. As we're recording this now, they got 3 in Cleveland and 3 in Boston.
It's not going to get easier. I mean,
but that's okay.
It's okay. And
I think they've harvested so much goodwill, especially after the sweep of the Yankees, which was an electric 3 games at Lone Depot Park, over 30,000 people in attendance for all 3 games. Somehow, you and I both missed all 3 of those games. Embarrassing. Producer Paul was there. He attested to how electric it was that Sunday game. Just a really fantastic season so far, I think, for the Marlins. They are surpassing expectations. Kyle Stowers seems to be a cornerstone in one of the outfield positions, and Tommy Hutton gets into it when we interview him. The Marlins, if you're old school mentality, is you build through the middle, right? Your catcher, your center fielder, and your middle infielders. They got Agustin Ramirez. They got Jakob Marsee now, who you know, we're 2 weeks into this, but he definitely seems like the center fielder of the future. Yeah. You got Xavier Edwards. You got reinforcements coming on the way with Joe Mack as well.
And you got a really good pitching staff, right? I think one of the surprises thus far of the season, aside from the good play of some of the youngsters, was the Marlins held pat at the deadline, right? They kept Edward Cabrera, they kept Sandy Alcantara, they kept a lot of the key pieces
Shocked
of that
a lot
bullpen.
of people.
Shocked a lot of people, and I think it sent a really strong message. Peter Bendix believes in the guys he has in that clubhouse. Clayton McCullough obviously does, but it sent a message that, hey, we believe that we have the pieces on this current roster, not necessarily need to go out and get a bunch of, blue chip prospects. Maybe he believes in the farm system. He believes in the current outfit of the Marlins. I think it sent a really strong message. Me personally, I thought the Marlins were going to sell some pieces. I maybe didn't think it was going to be a wholesale, but hey, if as a fan, keeping Edward, keeping Sandy, keeping Bender, keeping some of those guys in the bullpen sends a really strong message.
Think of it this way. If you're playing well and you're contributing to the team, they didn't seem a reason to let you go. The only guy they traded that made any headlines was Jesus Sanchez.
Yep.
And they got a Ryan Gusto back from the Houston Astros. And of course, Jesus Sanchez
destroyed the Marlins.
Has been mediocre at best the entire season. Not even up and down, more like a down, mediocre. Of course, he second series with Houston, the guy comes back to Lone Depot Park and
terrorizes the Marlins.
Puts on an absolute clinic. But that's baseball, right?
On the flip side, though, the trade of Sanchez gives the opportunity for a guy Marsee to shine, right? So that's
Marsee doesn't get his time to shine and his well-earned call-up without the trade to Jesus Sanchez happening. But my point being, Jesus Sanchez had to go. He was going to be a free agent or up for arbitration, one of the two. I apologize, I don't remember the exact details. But either way, very unlikely if Jesus Sanchez stayed. He was not going to be a Marlin next year. And we all knew the Marsee call-up was a matter of time. And let me tell you, the kid is an absolute bulldog.
Yeah.
Another
fun player to watch, man.
Player.
Hard-nosed, plays the game the right way. And I think as fans continue to watch him play, plays a really good center field too. I mean, he's fun to watch out there, left-handed.
I mentioned it in one of our group chats. I love that he wears a wide receiver number because the dude is
not for long though. Not for long.
I know it's one of the call-up reserve numbers, however it works. But seeing him out there wearing 87 track down fly balls and line drives and making diving catches, he looks like he could play for the Dolphins.
Reggie Wayne out there, dude, you know what I mean? It's a fun time to be a Marlin fan. Obviously, the next couple weeks will tell us a lot more about where they and look, obviously the Atlanta series was tough,
man,
but they didn't lose any ground. We were talking in some group chats. It's like they were 6 games out of the wild card when they entered Atlanta.
They walked in 6 games out. They walked out 6 games out.
That leads me to my next point. The state of New York baseball, dude, it is bad. The New York Mets forgot how to play baseball. The Yankees have been on a slippery slope, evidenced by their 3-game sweep in South Florida. The state of New York, for as much money as they spend on baseball, they are not getting a good return.
I think, not to tie everything back to the Marlins, but let guys like Peter Bendix cook. They know what they're doing.
Right.
I know the Mets are trying to combine methodologies, right?
Yeah.
The
Stearns
from Milwaukee, who built up that roster, and look at them now.
Right.
Obviously some of his remnants are still performing for the Brewers, and combining it with the money play. But the big time spenders, or excuse me, the big time earners for the Mets, kind of, I know Lindor's battling I was listening to MLB Network Radio today. He's battling a broken big toe or something that he rushed back from that's not healing properly. But the elephant in the room is Juan Soto.
Right.
I make the joke with our boy Dan Hines that Juan Soto is the Dominican Kyle Stowers.
He doesn't like that one.
He doesn't like that one, but the truth is now Kyle Stowers was the All-Star, the deserving All-Star, and right now he's a better player than Juan Soto, and he's getting paid a fraction of what Juan Soto's earning. Point is,
tough times.
Spending money does not guarantee wins. No. Spending money doesn't ensure that your guys are going to have great fundamentals or great managing. Aaron Boone is, his seat is hotter than it's ever been.
I think too with Boone, he's kind of let a lot of things slide. One thing we saw in Miami, right? Probably the craziest play of the weekend with the Marlins-Yankees series was a routine pop fly to Xavier Edwards, and Jazz Chisholm is at first base. Jazz is taking his lead. He takes his secondary lead. Ball goes up in the air. Very clearly going to be a pop out to second base. Jazz did not return to first base. For whatever reason, he thought he had in his mind that maybe Xavier Edwards was going to deke him, let the ball drop. Jazz gets doubled off. That's kind of like the sort of the avalanche that started. The Yankees can't pitch right now. They can't close games in the 9th inning. They've had leads late, and they can't figure it out. Devin Williams has really, really struggled in the closer role.
You know how you fix it all? No more beards. Take it
Go
away.
back.
Go back.
Go back.
What's that Matthew McConaughey quote? Sometimes to go forward, you got to go back.
Just don't solve the Yankees.
Yeah,
just make everybody shave their face. It's tough.
It's tough.
But Petey's Red Sox look good, man. Petey's not on here to defend himself again, but
who is that guy? The youth movement, I was trying to allude to this too, but the Red Sox are a fascinating team because they are what I think the Marlins are going to be aiming to be like next year, winning a bunch more games. But all credit to Cora and his crew. He's got the young guys playing really well, and they're doing this all without Christian Campbell, another one of their future cornerstones. He's been in the minors after struggling earlier this season, but Marcelo Meyer looks every bit as good as expected, and they have bounced back.
Anthony got his big payday, dude.
And they have bounced back tremendously since the trade and the distraction of Rafael Devers. And the biggest surprise, I think, in the Red Sox offense is the University of Miami guy.
I know, Romy Gonzalez.
Romy Gonzalez played really well. Did you know he's hitting over 300?
Tremendously locked in, as he likes to say. So, I think we've seen across baseball some of these teams that the Red Sox went away from spending. They kind of said that we're going to boost up our farm system.
It's a balance. It's a
balance. And look, one thing that Tommy Hutton said, it's going to lead into my next point. He said in his interview, and I don't mean to spoil it, but if the Yankees, with all the payroll and all the money they spend, played like the Brewers, they'd be 40
games over 500.
Right, with the amount of talent they have. And my next point is the Brewers are the best team in baseball. They've gone out to a massive lead in the NL Central somehow, some way. We saw them, when was it, like 6 weeks ago?
And the last time they lost everything, life is a flat circle. Everything ties back to the Marlins. Last time they lost the series, the Miami Marlins. Look at that. But yeah, we saw them live. We went to go see our boy Brandon Woodruff, who I think their hot streak is tied into him being back in the clubhouse. He's a huge glue guy. He's a personality guy. He seems to be, lead by example, rah, very supportive of his teammates. But what's fascinating to me about the Brewers, Ethan Badowski from Just Baseball, he brought this up in one of our group chats. If you put the Brewers lineup side by side with the Marlins or any other team, you'd be like, how is this team almost 40 games over 500?
Right. Like, they have 70 wins.
Who are these guys?
Yeah, it's a lot of those guys. It's a lot of guys that you won't necessarily see have maybe. I'm being super hypothetical, but not necessarily household names and not names that are going to make huge strides in terms of big contracts. Right? The Brewers just seem to shuffle in guys. They play hard. They play really good defense. They pitch really well. We saw our boy, and I think alluding to your point, Woodruff was kind of like a free agent acquisition, right? Because they brought him in the middle of the season. He's pitched like an ace.
Yeah, acquiring someone at the deadline for free.
They've had Freddie Peralta's pitching like an ace. Obviously, Mizorowski, he's an alien throwing 100.
Did you know Yuri Perez is younger than Jacob Mizorowski?
Incredible. I didn't know that. Makes you wonder.
So where's all the hype in South Florida?
Right. Yeah.
That's frustrating.
More eyes on Yuri.
More. That's frustrating. But your guy Pat Murphy seems to
pushing the right buttons.
Pushes all the right buttons. But I hope
one more thing on the Brewers. A crazy thing I saw: the Brewers obviously since June 1st have the best record in baseball. The Cubs have the second best record in baseball. And in that same amount of time, they've lost 5 games in the standings, and their second best record. The Cubs are playing good baseball. The Brewers are just on another level, another planet. There is no catching the Brewers in the NL Central.
Jeez. Marlins baseball looking like the Yankees.
Or producer Paul just put on the, sorry, we got distracted here, producer Paul. Well, and it's totally on Toad and I. We said with a lot of conviction that the Marlins game was 6:40 Central Time, meaning it would be 7:40 Eastern Time, and we were wrong. We were wrong.
I actually have a random question. We're watching this play. Xavier Edwards got, oh my God, umpires. Xavier Edwards got picked off from a lefty. I think this guy's name is Nick Allen for the Guardians.
FIU, pride of
really?
FIU. Yeah.
Wow.
Logan Allen.
Yeah. Who's Nick Allen?
I don't know.
Sounds like a backup quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Tell me I'm wrong. As a pitcher, can you explain what a balk is? Because that pickoff move clearly looked like a balk to me.
Well, with lefties, it's tough, right? So lefties, you stand over the rubber, they're looking at the runner, right? So it's very difficult to steal off a lefty. There's a couple different methods to do it. Most guys go first move. So as soon as they lift their leg or make any movement, runners are going. But lefties have the ability to lift their leg and kind of hold in place and not have to commit to going home or to first base. Right?
Yeah, but is there like an angle?
There's an imaginary 45-degree line.
Dude,
okay, so you're asking an umpire who's 80 feet away behind the first baseman and the runner to make a decision on if and to be good with angles, right? So did he pass 10th grade geometry?
There should be a line on the pitcher's mound.
There you go. In your league, let's send that to Rob Manfred. We know some people in the MLB office, but no one's picking off anymore, right? Because it's much more limited. Or right now, it's.
I think pickoffs are. Well, there's probably more pickoffs now because the runners are cheating a little more. They're being a little more.
But you're limited by 3, right? So it's not like you can spend your day. Andy Pettit would be throwing over 10 times a game right now. That's not as much. But yes, there is an imaginary line, and it's always funny to me because. When I was at UM, we had Brian Radzewski, who was notorious for having one of the best pickoff moves in the ACC. He was never, ever close to that 45 degrees. He was always further out.
That's as a fan, I get frustrated because what I grew up learning and understanding, anytime a lefty picks somebody off, it's a balk.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And you walk off quick. So like the umpire's going to go to the mound and find your cleat mark. Like usually the home plate umpire is the one who has to say it and he just yells it. You can't review a balk unless,
frustrating.
One of those baseball things.
To wrap this up, I would love to have a Tommy Hutton rant on what is.
We will ask him next time he comes on. Exactly right. But yeah, look, I think to wrap this all up, it's been a great month for baseball. We're in the dog days of August, but
the playoffs
really
are around the corner.
Races, playoffs are around the corner. We're going to definitely get you all ready to go and geared up for playoffs. We urge you to stick around for the back half of this episode. Again, Tommy Hutton was freaking incredible. I think Toad and I were more so, we could have sat here and flashed up a sign and said, Tommy, talk about this, and he would have gone on and on and on. He was unbelievable. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Tommy Hutton coming up next.
And we're back on the Bullpen Mafia. We are joined by a very special guest today, someone who probably needs no introduction in any household in South Florida. If you have watched a Marlins game over the last 25, 2 decades, almost 3 decades.
If you're listening to this podcast, you're going to recognize who it is when he starts speaking. But if you're on YouTube, you already got kind of the preview of who we're speaking with. Tommy. Yeah, I ruined it. But Javi, go ahead and introduce him.
A man who needs no introduction. Some would say the voice of the Marlins, Tommy Hutton. Tommy, thanks so much for joining the Mafia today.
Hey, Eric and Javi, my pleasure. I feel as relaxed as you guys look, right now. Just to sit back and talk a little bit. This is pretty cool.
We do anything we can to talk baseball, and I think we'd be remiss to say that having a conversation with Tommy Hutton, I think 8 and 9-year-old Javi and Eric would have been so thrilled for this opportunity, and we're so lucky to have you here with us. Tommy, something we ask every single one of our guests.
Okay.
Primarily our professional baseball players. We love to hear their call-up stories. Now, your call-up story. There's a lot of lore around it. It's almost one of those Paul Bunyan stories. We'd love to know your call-up story and more specifically, maybe how you got recognized as a professional baseball player.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. And I've had a lot of people ask me if it's really true. And it really is. I wouldn't lie to you guys, especially. Maybe somebody else. But I grew up in Southern California. And right outside Los Angeles, and I went to a high school, South Pasadena High School was the high school I went to, and I played ball. I played basketball and baseball in high school, and I enjoyed baseball. And there was I don't want to say a close friend, but a classmate of mine, and he had a summer job at Dodger Stadium. He worked in the parking lot, and so one day. I didn't know he was doing this, but one day, Tommy Lasorda pulled into the parking lot, and Tommy, at this time, was not the manager of the Dodgers. He was just starting out as a scout with the Dodgers. And my friend said, "Excuse me, sir, you can't park here. This lot is for the executives." And Tommy goes, "Well, I'm a scout." He goes, "Yeah, but you're not an executive. The scouts have to park over there." Well, Tommy, being Tommy, was able to talk his way into park in that lot because my friend said, "I'll tell you what, if you go scout my buddy at South Pasadena High School and see him play baseball, I'll let you park here. And Tommy said, I'll do it. And sure enough, Tommy started scouting me. I played on a team called the Dodger Rookie Team, which was made up of a lot of good players in Southern California. And one thing led to another. And Tommy and another scout by the name of Ben Wade were at my house. And this was before the draft. So I never got drafted by the Dodgers because before the draft, you could really sign. If you were like a top player, you could talk to all the teams and you could negotiate with all of them. And I had 2 or 3 teams interested. One of them actually was the Red Sox. But Tommy Lasorda and Ben Wade, the other scout, they were at my house on a Friday night and trying to talk me into signing with the Dodgers and not the Red Sox. So Tommy in Tommy Lasorda way is telling my parents, he's good. Do you want your son? And remember now, I'm 18 years old this time. Do you want your son playing all the way across the country in Massachusetts, or do you want him right down the Pasadena freeway at Dodger Stadium? So we agreed on the contract, and now got to the signing time, and I said, Tommy, I can't sign it yet. He said, why not? I said, I always promised an old coach that I had in high school. He was like an assistant. He wasn't really our baseball coach, but he was an old coach. He followed our careers. I said, I always promised Coach Green that if I signed a contract, I wanted him to be there with my mom and my dad. Well, it was Friday night, and Coach Green was the timer for Friday Night Football, and it was in November. So we had to wait. and now my brother plays piano, and so my mom fixed some dinner. My brother's playing some Italian music. Tommy's singing, and finally Coach Green got there. We signed the deal. So it took a while, but I finally became a Dodger then at that point.
That story, I mean, whatever we read online did not do that story justice. Tommy, did you ever thank your friend that let Tommy Lasorda into the parking lot? He's kind of like
I remember
the
talking
effect.
to him. I'll be honest with you, I can't remember his name right now because we were, like I said, I think he was a grade or 2 ahead of me, and he just knew that I played baseball, and I'm not sure if I ever had a chance to tell him that story, but it's. There's some amazing things. The Dodger organization, they have a gentleman who goes back into their archives and has all kinds of things. And he sent me just a couple of weeks ago, a tape of it was really cool to hear this, of when I got called up in 1969. We were in Chicago. The Dodgers were playing the Cubs. And it's a game in which I had 3 hits. Fergie Jenkins started that game, and it's Vin Scully broadcasting the game on the radio.
Wow!
So it was pretty cool.
What a memory! And I mean, obviously, you get your call up with the Cubs. You parlay that into a 12-year career. Another thing we found out, and I think I told you right before we started this, we're doing some research, and I mentioned exactly what I read on ChatGPT. Tommy Hutton owns Tom Seaver of the Mets, the Hall of Famer, and it explicitly said that when I was reading that, I was like, wow, that is amazing to have memorialized. But you hit 320 off Tom Seaver. Even again, I mentioned Eric's dad. Eric's dad sent us articles on the way over here, and Tom Seaver said in this particular article, I think he had 4 RBIs in this game. Tommy hit a home run. He says, "I can't get the guy out." What was your secret against Tom Seaver?
Well, I've always told people. I think 1972 was my first full year in the major leagues, and I played a little bit against him, and I might have had some success. In 1973, the Phillies, who I was with at the time, we opened the season at Shea Stadium against the Mets, and of course it was Tom Seaver against Steve Carlton.
Wow.
Not a bad matchup.
No.
And I wasn't the everyday first baseman. I was rarely. 1972, I played the most I ever played, but I was always an extra man. good defensive first baseman, made myself a pretty good pinch hitter, could play all the outfield spots, and I would start, sporadically. And all of a sudden, we're opening the season, 1973, Shea Stadium, and I'm the opening day first baseman, and I hit cleanup against Seaver. And so that I always remember that. But it was the one thing I always tell people as the next few years went on, it was more of a mental thing because, again, I didn't play all the time, but all of a sudden we'd play the Mets. The Mets would come into Philadelphia, or we'd go to New York, and Seaver would be on the mound, and I'd be in the lineup, and guys would come up to me, and they'd just say, "Oh, you're probably good for 2 or 3 hits today. Just relax. You'll get a couple today. Seaver's on the mound." So I never wanted to break the mystique and talk to Seaver about it, except one time at Shea Stadium, I'm out early. He wasn't pitching, and he was out running his laps. And I had my wife with me on this trip to New York, and I knew, hey, it's Tom Seaver. He knows good places to eat. So I finally did go up to him and I asked him if he could, recommend a couple of good restaurants. But I'll tell you the interesting thing. It's when I was with Philadelphia and he was with the Mets, that's when I had all of the success. When he went to Cincinnati and I went to Montreal, I didn't have near the same success against him. So, it was a Philly, New York thing. But overall, it turned out to be pretty good.
Can you imagine if your personal boogeyman, Tom Seaver's boogeyman, is Tommy Hutton, and he's asking for dinner recommendations? That's got to be I
wonder if he wanted to fight you on the spot, Tommy.
No, one night, my wife and I are getting ready for bed, and we had the TV on. I'm not even sure where we were. Probably in Philadelphia, maybe. Or it might have been after. I think it was after we had both been retired. And all of a sudden there was a little show, and whoever was interviewing Tom Seaver, they were talking about different things of his career and everything. And finally, toward the end of the show, the interviewer said, "Who are the toughest guys you ever faced?" So I perk up. I go, well, he goes, Joe Morgan, Willie Stargell, McCullough. He mentioned one more. And he paused and he said, "Tommy Hutton." And I went, yes.
Man, what a story. I mean, again, if my boogeyman, me as a pitcher, if someone who absolutely owned me was so nice and asked me for dinner recommendations for dinner with my wife, I don't know how I'd respond. I really don't.
Tommy, 12 years in the bigs, and you made an immediate transition to broadcasting. How did that happen? Were you always a personality guy in the locker room? Is that something that you knew you wanted to get into? How did your broadcast career get kicked off?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I was always someone, when I was in Philadelphia in the off season, they were always really good about having the players go out to Little League banquets and speak and hand out trophies and do stuff like that. And I always enjoyed that. And then the last year, it was 80 or 81, probably 80, because 81 was my last year. But I always tell people it was 80 because I was so horrible in 81. It felt like 80 was. But anyway, in 1980, in the off season, I sent, this was way before emails and all this stuff. I sat down and I looked at all the teams, and I would find someone in the broadcasting department, or maybe even in the front office, somebody that I knew a little bit. And I wrote letters to say that I know my career's coming to an end. It's winding down. And I have an interest in broadcasting, and if just wanted to, update you on that. And so I did that. I heard back from a couple of teams. Anyway, I was with Montreal at the time, and I think it was July or August. We're taking batting practice. Each group, and I was always in the group with the guys who weren't playing, is starting, and so you get about so many swings, 10 swings, and you get 7 swings, and you get 5 swings. So I'm taking BP, And our general manager, John McHale, calls me over to sit in the dugout next to Dick Williams, the manager. And I'm thinking to myself, this can't be good. And John McHale knew that I was interested in broadcasting. And he said, we're going to release you because we have to make room for this player. And we need to release you now. But we know you have an interest in broadcasting. And if you'd like to stay the remainder of the season and help out on radio, we'd love to have you.
Wow.
So I said, well, can I give you a decision tomorrow? So the next day was Sunday. And I decided, my wife and I talked about it. And we said, you know what? This is an opportunity. It might as well. I had a chance to go play in Japan. But I just didn't want to disassociate myself so far away from the game in the United States. So, and Canada, because I'm in Montreal. And so I decided to do it. So that was Sunday. Wednesday, I worked a game on the radio.
Wow.
So the other thing that griped me is that I look back on it and I got cheated out of my last 4 swings in my group because he called me off the field before my group was through hitting. So I got cheated out of my last 4 practice swings. But anyway, I worked. That was Sunday, and I worked a game. It was the Expos in Philadelphia against the Phillies, and I worked on the radio. I didn't even know how to keep score. I had, because I always played, I never sat down and kept score. So the rest of the year, and I didn't work every game. I'd work a few series here, a few series here. So when they didn't have me on radio, I would go up in the booth and find an empty booth, sit there with a tape player and a score sheet, write down the lineups and practice doing play-by-play and keeping score, figuring out how to do it. And because I told myself, I said, I'm not going to get a job if I want to stay in this business. I'm not going to get a job because I'm a big-time superstar. I'm going to get a job because I'm a broadcaster. And that's what I wanted to become, as opposed to just an ex-player that does color. So I actually did a lot of play-by-play. I did some play-by-play on TV in 1989 with Bobby Mercer. Doing Yankee games. Wow. And Bobby was my partner. I did play-by-play on radio. So it worked out that I was able to do both. And lately, I just do the color and the analyst stuff now, but that's how it started. So I always tell people I was out of the game 2 days before I started my broadcast career.
You got called up twice, Tommy. You got called up to the big leagues, and then you got released, and 48 hours later, you're called up to one of the most desirable jobs in the game, right? I mean, and how quickly do you think you found your footing in terms of broadcasting? Because it's not easy. Easy.
I would hate to hear some of those old broadcasts. I had a lot of people. I asked a lot of questions. At that time, Dave Van Horn, who did Marlins radio for 20 years, Dave was the Expos radio and TV voice, along with Duke Snider.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that. So I got to see Duke all the time. And when they went on TV, that's when I got the chance to do some games on the radio. And, of course, back then they didn't do every game on TV like they do now. So I had lots of great advice from him. When I'd go to St. Louis, I'd talk to Jack Buck. I remember talking to Harry Carey, and I'd try to talk to different guys and pick their brain about different things. And one of the things I always remember everybody said, and Jack Buck was good about telling you in interviewing a player. Sometimes, like you guys, you got a few notes, but we're just having a conversation, and that's kind of how Jack Buck said you should do an interview. He said, play your interview off the first answer.
Yeah, right.
Whatever the first answer is. And instead of having a list of questions and going from this to that to this. So, different broadcasters would give me. I talked to Vin Scully because I grew up listening to Vin Scully when I was in Los Angeles. So they would give you different advice. So that was always good.
Tommy, I mean, that kind of parlays perfectly. Toad and I grew up listening to you in our living rooms for decades, it feels like, and now you're closing in on close to 25 years with the Marlins. You've been part of 2 World Series championships, the opening of a new stadium. Tommy, what's the Marlins organization? What is it so special, and what does it mean to you? Coming back and in the role you're in now and seeing this youth movement, what is so special about the Marlins organization?
Well, there have been some, as you guys know, there have been some good days and bad days. The World Series have been tremendous. I've actually, as you know, I've been there through all the managers except one because I wasn't there initially. But the World Series were certainly special. The teardowns were not. But all in all, it's given me a chance to live in the same house in Palm Beach County for over 40 years.
Wow.
So I haven't had to move around. And so that's the one thing it's done. When I got let go after the 15 season, that was tough for me. I'll be honest. That was because I thought I was going to, just hang on for a few more years. But it was great when I had the opportunity to come back, did a little pre and post stuff, and now back doing about 50, 60 games, home games. So just to do that, to be home, my family's here, my sons are here, my granddaughters are here. So that's what's special to me. It's been fun seeing the guys go in the Marlins Legends Hall of Fame. Jeff Conine, Jim Leland was in town. It was great to see him. Of course, he's in the Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame too. And then Jack McKeon recently, and coming up it'll be Luis Castillo. I was telling somebody the other day with Luis Castillo, it was so fun coming to the ballpark when he was on that hitting streak. I think it was 35 games it ended. But every day we'd come to the ballpark thinking, how's Louis going to get a hit today? What's he going to do? Is he going to get a bunt base hit? What's he going to do? And he'd get the base hit. That was really a fun time coming to the ballpark.
I feel like we've brought up my dad so many times. This is the most my dad has ever been mentioned on an episode. But I'm bringing him up again, Tommy, because he and I were at the game that the streak ended. And I want to say it was lightly raining. And was it not Lenny Harris was hitting ahead of him in extra innings for a walk-off or something like that? Is that right?
I do remember he hit a couple of balls well and didn't get a hit. And I think they booed whoever made the out.
Right.
Because Louis was on deck, I think.
Yeah.
Louis was on deck, and whoever it might have been Lenny. I'm not sure, but whoever made the last out, the fans were booing.
Those for me, those are my very nostalgic prime memories of baseball because it's just my dad and I going to the ballpark. I grew up in South Miami, Kendall, so we're driving 30 minutes north. Hopefully it doesn't rain and be able to catch the Marlins. Tommy, what are just some of your favorite overall Marlins memories? Javi mentioned it before. You and Rich Waltz are such key personalities of our childhood, and a lot of Marlins fans. You and Rich are synonymous with the Marlins the same way you and Kyle Seeloff are about to be synonymous with another era of Marlins fans. But can you just break down some of your favorite memories and maybe some stories with Rich that we didn't see on the air?
Well, it's funny you say that because the day we're speaking to do this, I spoke to Rich today. I spoke to him this morning. So we stay in touch. I think one of the ones that people remember is, I got to go back, though, because I've had the opportunity to work with some really great guys. Initially, I worked with Joe Angel and Dave O'Brien. And then I had the chance to work with Len Casper. I used to joke with all these guys I work with. I sent them on to better things. To Dave O'Brien went to Atlanta, and now he's with Boston. Len Casper got his dream job in Chicago, where he's from. And then Rich, and then Paul Severino, and now with Kyle. So I've had the chance to work with some really great people, and I think not only just work with them on the air. I find this hard to believe that there are broadcasters that I know across baseball who don't get along with each other and don't speak until they're on the air. I'm happy to say all the guys I work with are guys that I still stay in touch with and consider real good friends. But the story that's always the best with Rich was was we would have other broadcasters come up to us and say, "How do you pronounce this guy's name?"
We know where this is going.
Is it Uggla? Is it how do you say his name? And one night he hit a bomb, which he hit many, and I don't know. Rich just looked at me. I looked at him. We just said that his name is Dan Uggla, and so that became a catchphrase. One of the great moments. One night we had Michael Hill on, who was a general manager at the time, and we're talking to Michael in the inning, and Uggla comes up. Uggla goes deep, and Michael said, and his name is Dan Uggla. So that was always good.
Tommy, you guys worked together for so long. I was looking at some of the historic major league moments. I know you're a lifelong baseball fan. You got the opportunity to call a perfect game, right? You were there with a Roy Halladay 1-0 Philly game. You called a couple no hitters. Put us in the broadcast booth, like as not only a fan of the game, but you're watching history transpire before your eyes. What does that do for you as having a front row seat to that?
It keeps you on your edge. I tell you, as the fifth inning, sixth inning comes along. The one that was amazing was the AJ Burnett one, because he walked 9 guys and I think hit 2. And I'm with Dave O'Brien at the time, and we're in San Diego where he threw the no hitter. And about the 5th or 6th inning, because there were guys on base all the time, about the 5th or 6th inning, I looked at Obi and I said, "Hey, Obi, they don't have a hit yet." One thing led to another, and all of a sudden he threw a no hitter. The perfect game of Roy Halladay was fantastic. The Anibal Sanchez was just seamless. It didn't seem like he even was trying that night. So I got to do that one. One of the ones that I always remember was not related with the Marlins. From 90 through, before I came to the Marlins, from 90 through 96, I did Toronto Blue Jays baseball about 70 games a year, and I did about 30 ESPN games. And so one night, I'm with Toronto working with Don Chevrier, and we're in Texas. Texas was not on television that night. They weren't televised, so we were the only TV that night. And Nolan Ryan was on the mound, and he was, I think, 43 or 4. He ended up throwing his 7th no-hitter, 7th and final no-hitter. And we had a cameraman who used to travel with us, young guy, Mike. And about the 3rd inning, I looked over at Mike. I said, "Hey, Mike, have you ever seen a no-no?" And he said, "No." I said, "He's got one tonight." And the great stories about that is that he almost didn't pitch because he felt so bad in the bullpen warming up that he almost didn't go out and pitch. But so the great story to that, to show you what kind of guy Nolan Ryan is, ESPN, because I had done work with them, was working with them, knew I was doing that game. They got in touch with our producer and they said, "Could you go down the clubhouse and get Nolan for an interview after the game?" I said, "Okay." So I go in the clubhouse, the Texas clubhouse. This was the older ballpark. It was a small little clubhouse. Here he is, 43, 44 years old. He'd just thrown a no-hitter. He's on the bike, the stationary bike, sweating. And I was able to get up. I said, "Nolan, ESPN wants to know if we could do an interview. When are you going to be done? We'll do it out in the dugout." He said, "I'll be out there in about 20 minutes. And sure enough, I waited for him in the dugout. He came out, did the interview. So that shows you what kind of guy Nolan Ryan is.
Tommy, we want to shift gears here to the current Marlins. And I wanted to pick your brain. I've had this idea that there's a lot of current Marlins that are comparable either in their at-bats, the way they take swings, or their overall effort. And I wanted you to rate my comps. You mentioned Dan Uggla and Agustin Ramirez. When I see them
right on.
Thank you.
1 for 1, Toad. Keep it going, baby.
When I see Agustin Ramirez taking his vicious hacks, we spoke about this with Gabby Sanchez. It's to me, it's identical. It's crazy. And then the other one that I cannot get out of my mind, Javier Sanoja is the modern day Alfredo Amezaga. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, Amezaga was always one of my favorites, and my two sons, who are even older than you guys, they loved Amezaga. And I always like to compare Sanoja not only with Amezaga, with Bonifacio, and certainly with what John Birdie recently did. Play all over, brings some excitement, hits for power once in a while, had 2 home runs recently in a game. So, he's a fun player to watch. Fans are always attracted to a guy like that.
I think that's like a common theme with this year's bunch, right? There's a lot of guys who play hard, and I think they've endeared themselves to fans, right? I think one guy we've seen recently come up who I think embodies everything about this Marlins sort of youth movement is Jakob Marsee. And I think he's had an unbelievable start to his rookie campaign. He's filled in a role, and he's played exceptionally well. And I think the one thing for me as a fan of baseball, he plays really hard. He seems like a hard-nosed guy. It seems like when he gets on first base, it's an auto steal to second. People haven't figured out how to get him out from stealing a base. So as a pitcher, I know that would cause me a lot of anxiety having a guy like Jakob Marsee. But from your perspective, Tommy, what does Jakob Marsee do well, and what can we expect from Jakob Marsee the rest of the season?
Well, a lot of times young guys come up and in a short period of time, do really well. And then you see some struggles. I think the thing that will keep him from struggling too much is the fact that he has tremendous knowledge of the strike zone. I can't believe he's 24 years old, and to see the way he takes pitches, takes close pitches, he's not afraid to get to a 2-strike count. And it seems like every time he's up there, it's 2-2 or 3-2. So I really look for good things. I look for guys that you want to build your ball club on in the future. And so you mentioned one with Agustin Ramirez behind the plate. Certainly he needs work defensively, but as that improves and the bat, I think, is going to improve, there's no question he has power. You like building on somebody like that. Marsee in center field. So now you're looking up the middle. You're looking pretty good. Xavier Edwards has been on an unbelievable tear ever since he took over at second base. So he's solid there. Kyle Stowers in left field. So the more and more you add, and if you think about it, these are guys the Marlins have acquired. So you give credit to Peter Bendix and the front office and the people that they've traded to acquire some of these players. This guy's been hurt, so we haven't seen a lot of him lately, but Connor Norby, I love the way he plays. Whether it's third base or wherever down the road they see the best place for him. You mentioned the way this ball club plays. I can't tell you the number of times that we're up in the booth upstairs on the press level. I know you guys had press passes the other day. You were privy to that. But I can't tell you the number of times other broadcasters come up to us, to Kyle, myself, and will comment on the way the Marlins play the game, how hard they're running out balls they hit. And it's, I think of it, I look at the Brewers and the Yankees. If the Yankees played the game like the Brewers do, they'd be 20 games ahead. But they just sit back and try to hit home runs and don't have the defense and all that. But, you have to have a little bit of both, I think. And I think down the road, the Marlins will try to put all of that together, too.
I think this current team has done a great job just by playing hard, getting Marlins fans to invest in the team this year. They're easy to root for. When you go to the ballpark, they might struggle some nights, but they're going to be going 100%. All we have to do the rest of the year is avoid Atlanta, Georgia at all costs. And I think we're going to get back on the right track.
Yeah, I think for a moment I thought that Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox were thrown in that series in Atlanta. And it was unfortunate. After the 3-game sweep of the Yankees, there's no question that the next night against Houston, that was a letdown. And it's tough. I mean, they had over 100,000 people, over 33, 34 every night. And it was great. It was great electricity in the ballpark. So it was hard to come back from that. And also, there are a few key guys that are struggling a little bit. Yeah. And you can't see that happening too long. Ramirez, Stowers, they're struggling a little bit. You want to see them come out of it. And hopefully the next the rest of the way the games they have to play, they'll continue to play hard. Clayton McCullough will make sure of that. There's no question about it.
Tommy, how have your interactions been with McCullough? What are your impressions of him more than halfway through his first season?
I enjoy, the times I get to be there and talk to him. He's always very upfront and honest with us about players, which is all we ask. As broadcasters, you want to have the manager trust you, that he can say things that you're not going to say on the air,
right?
That he can have your trust. I remember walking one year into the Cardinal clubhouse, and Tony La Russa was sitting there. He's all by himself, and he said, "Hey, come on in." And I want to say he told me things about his club that certainly I couldn't say on the air, but it was terrific to know that a guy like him trusted me in telling me some things that he knew I wouldn't make public.
And that's the special part of the broadcaster relationship, right? Is the trust that you have with your peers, and ultimately with the folks that help keep the game moving forward. And Tommy, we're gonna get you out on this one. It's been ringing in my head the whole time we've been interviewing you. You've been part of 2 World Series championships. If the '97 Marlins played the '03 Marlins at full strength, who do you think wins that game?
I think 03.
Wow.
I think 03. I've told people that, you got, it's tough to compare, but, you got Dontrell and Beckett and you got the defense. I've told people that the infield defense in 03 with Mikey Lowell and with
Gonzalez,
Alex and Louie and Derek Lee is the best defensive infield I've seen. And so if push comes to shove, I'm going to go, the defense is going to help you win that series. So I would say 03. Plus, I see Juan Pierre once in a while, and he would get all over me if I didn't. So,
well, Tommy, it's really truly been a pleasure to have you on. I mean, I know we could talk for hours. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could spend just talking about your Dodger stories and going decade by decade through your journey in baseball would be
one Dodger story. I'll leave you with a good Dodger story. I was privy to be on a minor league team in AAA that was managed by Tommy Lasorda. Tommy had Joe Ferguson was our catcher, not all the time, but he was there. I played first base. Davey Lopes played second. Bobby Valentine played short.
Wow.
Ron Say played third. We had Bill Buckner in the outfield. We had Tom Paciorek, and we had Von Joshua. Everybody in that starting lineup had a 10-year or more major league career. We had Charlie Huff. We had Doyle Alexander, who had a terrific career. And we won the league by 26 games. And Tommy used to take all the manager, and we used to say, "Tommy, you didn't do a thing." And I'll tell you how we learned how to play the game. He knew we were all pretty experienced, and he knew we were pretty good. He told us at the beginning of the year, he said, "I'm not going to have signs." He said, "You guys know if you're," and it's a different game now, but you guys know if the scoreboard will tell you what to do. If you're down a few runs, counts 2-0, 3-0, you know to take. Hit and run, you can have your own personal signs with each guy as the guy gets on base. If you show me you don't know how to do that, then we'll have signs. So we pretty much went the entire year without having signs from, he coached third, the manager coached third base. And like I said, we won the league, and we won the playoffs 4 straight against the Hawaii Islanders. So that was a fun year.
I can imagine. Can you imagine no signs? You're losing to a team that's just all 10-year big leaguers. Unbelievable. Tommy, like I said, we could go on for hours and hours. So we truly, truly appreciate having you on. I know from 2 lifelong Marlins fans sitting in front of you, this has been an absolute treat for us. We'd love to have you back on at the end of the season. We'll talk more stories, but Tommy Hutton, we always tell our guests you have a home with the Mafia, and you certainly have a home with us. We really appreciate it.
Hey, anytime, Javi and Eric, enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll do this again. Why not?
We love it, Tommy. We're honored, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy.
Okay, thanks, guys.